All right, man. We are up and running.
You're live. Let's go. Well,
Well,
first of all, I appreciate you letting me on the podcast. It's sick.
dude, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you coming out here. But really, kind of before we get started, I wanted to dive in a little bit and just let you, and then we can just talk and see where the
Yeah.
conversation goes. But I want you to take a second, kind of tell about what you do, the creation of your company, Brotherdale,
Mhm.
what it does, and kind of the clients that you've worked with. Because there's some awesome ones that I've seen over the. I've been following you guys for a while, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, that's awesome. Let me make this like condensed enough to where it's not like a huge like whole thing. But basically, so I'll start with Brotherdale. So Brotherdale is a creative marketing agency now. So when we first started it, it was just creative. So we'd work on all creative projects across the board. So that's design on stuff, if that's photography, it's all production from like literal conception, so pre-production, production, and then actual post-production, so all the editing, all that stuff. That's what we did for a while, and then now, over this a year and a half ago, we worked with a marketing agency that the two owners that we knew since it was like 2016 or so. We worked on a lot of clients together, so eventually we had like 80% of the same clients. We're like, okay, known each other for a long time. We'll dissolve you guys, bring you into Brotherdale because the brand was a little bit bigger, a little better name because marketing agencies don't normally have a great brand presence. So we dissolved them and brought them into one house. So now we do both the marketing and the creative on that side. So basically on the creative side, we do everything. There's a bunch of different brands and companies and individuals all over the country and make all of their stuff. If it's launching a new product for a brand, if it's launching a brand itself, obviously one of our bigger clients is Monster Energy. So they have a division. They have basically Monster's a big corporation where they have a bunch of umbrella companies. So Rain Energy,
Yep.
Rainstorm, right here. This brand, we helped launch this whole thing last year. Um, so we work with them on all their projects, and it's all really for them. It's a lot of organic stuff, so organic content, different launches for different drinks, all that stuff. And then on the ad side, with a lot of our clients, we'll do the creative for ads, and then our ads team will run the ads, and we're all in one house, so everybody's full time here. So if a new ad needs to go up for a client, the ad director can walk over and talk to the creative team, say, "Hey, this is the changes we need to make," and then go back to his office. So it's like super fast, and that was kind of the vision from it. Whenever we decided to dissolve the whole thing into one, but basically before Brotherdale, we actually went to college together, so everybody can know that.
Yep.
It was kind of crazy in McKendree. So you
Yep.
played football, I played soccer, and then you went to Heron High School, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I went to AJ, so we were like 30 minutes away from each other, which is hilarious. And so from there, though, I actually dropped out of school going into junior year because I loved playing soccer. It wasn't like I was starting, and doing all this stuff, but it was more of like when you're a college athlete, this, like you don't really have another job. You're playing your sport, your training, and then you're at class. So those are the two things. And for me, I don't come from a lot of money. I come from a lot of love,
Yep.
great parents, but not, monetary wise, like we didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't have any money doing that stuff. So I had a scholarship and was able to, like, you get some perks with that. But I was just like sick of just being broke. And I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't know necessarily when I first started college what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to play soccer. So that was my
Mhm.
biggest thing. But I ended up dropping out. I knew I wanted to make videos. So dropped out, moved back with my parents, started making videos, and then was doing construction on the side. And about 8 months later, I was full time doing video work, and then got pretty successful in the freelance in that area in Illinois, so still Illinois area, and did that. And then basically, what spurred starting Brotherdale was just running out of time in a day, because I was like, okay, I'm doing very well. I hit a lot of my financial goals for the years I was doing stuff, and I was like, well, there's literally no more time that I can put to making more things. Like, I can't make any more videos. I can't get any more clients because I don't have any more time. So then met my business partner Hunter, and we were working on things together a little bit. I'd contract him out for certain projects he'd help me out with, and then eventually we had an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl in Tampa back in I think it was 2020 or 21, one of the two. And we flew out there. We met Monster out there. We met a few other clients that are still clients today, which is pretty wild. And then once that happened, we were like, all right, this is actually a pretty good sign to just start our own thing and really kick it off. And so that's when Brotherdale kind of started. And really over the years, like we knew a lot of guys that were creatives, so they were
Yeah.
either photographers or editors or guys who run the camera and be able to shoot. And so those guys trusted us enough, and they were following our careers before that they wanted to come on full time. So we brought on one guy and the next guy, and it kind of just that's a long story short, but they kind of started to grow from there. And so now we're about I think we're about like 20 something, give or take, somewhere in there, full time. We have a studio in Nashville. We had three studios. We have one big one now, so I'm in my office, but
Hmm.
and that's kind of literally how it started. So it started with just us in a little basement actually in the beginning, and then went to a little townhouse. So we had the center floor. This is all on YouTube too. The center floor was just our office space essentially, and we'd shoot in the kitchen a little bit for different products and whatnot. And then the basement was our garage, and it was like our little studio in the garage, and the upstairs where people lived, which was kind of wild. And then from there we got a next little space and a little bit bigger, and kind of separate it from living to having a studio and then also living, because if
Hmm.
you're living in your workplace, it gets kind of hectic after a little while. So that's where it went. But overall, we ended up building something special, and
Yeah.
I just love it. Essentially,
It's
it's
been amazing to watch from like an outside perspective, but also again knowing you from the same area from
yeah,
school. It's and being like following you since that time, and then watching your inception and creation of Brotherdale has been super awesome
mhm,
from like just seeing it develop, but also been extremely cool from just like I know the effort that you put into it. Like I know the
yeah,
amount of work, like just following both sides and just seeing like the long hours, the days that you put in
hmm
has been really awesome to see, and just like tremendously like inspiring from just that aspect, but also like it's not always fun, I'm sure.
yeah,
Like it's fun in that you enjoy what you do, but it's
mhm,
not fun in that like a 16-hour, 17-hour, 18-hour day is still
yeah,
an 18-hour day.
yeah, 100%. And that's the thing too. Like, and people like you hear some podcasts all the time, but people are like, I want to work for myself. So I want to set my own hours and do all this stuff. And it is that, but it's not that. It becomes it's now your life. Like there's no separation really when it comes to work life separation.
Hmm.
There's really zero. Like yeah, you have to take time. I have a wife. Have to take time and spend time with her and do dates and all that stuff. But when you're in the game, if you're really about what you're doing, if you really love what you're doing, then your brain is always in that area, no matter what. Like, you really can't separate it. Maybe for a few minutes if you're on the beach and you finally get a vacation,
Hmm.
maybe, but you don't separate it very often. So it's if for a lot of people that are high achievers, and I know like was able to talk with Dana White quite a bit about this kind of stuff, and he's like, yeah, like the people that are really going to take over the industries are people that are 100% committed, and you have to because you're in competition with everybody who's
Yep.
in that space. And no matter what, if you can be a kind person, you can be nice, and there's a bunch of work to go around, but it's still competition. You still have to outwork people, and there's fires that come up, and the bigger that you grow things, you have bigger problems.
Yep.
And so you're always working, and literally like we did 18-hour days for a long period of time to get the company to where it's at, and we're still doing 18-hour days a lot of the time because there's other problems that pop up and just how it goes. But I do love it. But there's a lot of times where it's not fun at
Yep.
all. Like the overall thing is amazing. Like you get to go to work and do what you love to do every day with people that you enjoy a lot, and it's a great time. But yeah, it's definitely stressful, but it's good. It keeps life exciting for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A couple things. Like I know you went to school, you were playing soccer.
Mhm.
You didn't know what you wanted to do. When did you know you wanted to start creating videos? Like at what point
Yeah,
was that the route?
that's a really good question, actually. So it's really funny. So when I first got to McKendree, like I knew, like I got the scholarship, did the whole thing that summer. I was preparing, and I literally, bro, I did not. When I got on campus, I knew in my brain. I remember having this exact thought the first day that I got there. I was like, "There's no way that I'm graduating from here. There's absolutely zero way." Not because the college wasn't nice. I loved it. It was great. I
Hmm.
met a bunch of good friends, but I just knew like I wasn't going to be in college for anything that I had to offer in the
Hmm.
workspace because I just didn't know. Like, I knew I couldn't be in a building working for somebody all the time. That's something I'm not passionate about. So I just knew it. At that point, I didn't know if I was going to do video work full time at all. Like I literally had no thoughts. I enjoyed making videos because I did. When I was like 9 years old, I started making like little home videos and like little
Yeah.
movies and stuff that I have on like DVDs back in the day with like a camcorder and all this stuff. But so I knew how to make videos. I wasn't good at it at all, like not to the level of like actually being a professional. So I would say I was actually pre-med when I first got there
Hmm.
for 2 years. So I was doing biology, anatomy,
Hmm.
all those things. But I knew I wasn't going to do that. But it was really that summer of 2016 is when I would have been. going into my sophomore year, I believe. Yeah, some sophomore year.
Yeah.
Um, Started vlogging quite a bit and started just hanging out with friends and making videos, and we were having a blast. And then I was like, yeah, I think I could probably do this. And then I started watching, Gary Vee. I watched a
Yep.
lot of Logan Paul, which is hilarious back in the day because that's when he was daily vlogging and doing
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I was just watching his vibe and like seeing everything that was happening. And watched Rory Kramer was one of the big
Okay.
inspirations. He's a big videographer that did a lot of stuff with the Chainsmokers, did a Beachy video, and he was blowing up back then. And that's when like Peter McKinnon, all these guys
I love
that
Peter
are
McKinnon. I
yeah,
watched a
he's a
video of
stud.
his today.
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's go. But those guys were inspiring. So I was watching that stuff and I was like, okay, there's money in this somewhere for sure.
Mhm.
And then just talking about like focusing and really figuring out what you want to do. And if you want to do it, you gotta dive into it. So yeah, that summer I was like, okay, I know this is what I want to do for sure. I'm still playing soccer. I didn't know like what the right moves were. So I did that next year. And then that year, that summer, I was like, because I went to some it was a internship for Northwestern Mutual, which is
Okay.
the name
Yeah.
drop. I went to that, and the people were great, super nice. I went in there, and I was like, okay, I cannot do this. This is going to be terrible. Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
So that summer, I made up my mind. I was not gonna play soccer anymore. So I ended up leaving McKendree and going to SIUE for about 2 weeks, which is a big mistake, but not really. It was a blessing now that I look back at it. But
Yeah.
I went there for 2 weeks, and then I was sitting in class, and I was in communications because it was the closest thing to film school that they offered there.
Mhm.
So I still wanted to be in the St. Louis area because I had a lot of friends there from McKendree. So I went there, and then yeah, that about 2 weeks in, I was sitting in class, and they were giving us an assignment for I think it was like a writing assignment for a newspaper. And I was sitting there, I'm like, okay, doing the math. If I leave right now, I'll be 2 years ahead of everybody in my class. Is going to be graduating in 2 years. I bet you I can do quite a bit of damage in that time to like, get ahead. So I straight up just got up out of class, left my books there, walked down, and just dropped out. Didn't call my parents, didn't do anything. I just straight up walked out. And to drop out of college, by the way, for
Wow.
whoever's looking into that,
Yeah.
maybe not. Who knows? I'm not condoning it, but it's just one signature. So I
Yeah.
just walked down to the office, one signature, and you're done. And then they'll come after you for their money because they want their money back. But
Yes.
yeah, so that was the mistake that I was alluding to earlier. I had to go back and fix that part and end up, paying off that stuff
Yeah.
because it was different from leaving McKendree because I had a scholarship there. But I did that, and from there it was just like focus and figure out how to do stuff because uh, the stress. I mean, it's a blessing because the stress of doing that really makes you figure out problems and you start to think more critically because you have to if you're going to make money to eat food and to
Mhm.
have gas money. You have to figure out how to make money in whatever business you're doing. And so that was like the beginning of that. But to answer your question, yeah, that first summer I was like, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do. I
Yeah.
just don't know how to get there yet. So
Okay.
yeah.
How did you know like you were a creative? Like you had that like because
Yeah.
a lot of people, me included, like
Mhm.
I enjoy writing, I enjoy creating stuff, but I don't consider myself a creative until I like actually dive in and I'm like, oh, I have ideas. I have
Mhm.
storylines, I have plots. How did you figure out you were creative and that's something you could do, full time?
Yeah. I would say probably vlogging. So I started vlogging that summer quite a bit. I would like vlog almost every day, and I posted a lot of them on YouTube. And I posted a lot before when I was in about eighth grade. I posted a lot of videos, and I ended up like deleting them because I was scared to go out in high school and be like, "Oh, people saw my videos." It was
Yep.
before YouTube and all that stuff was like cool to do,
Yep.
and that was actually the time that you should have built your stuff back then.
Yep.
Because yeah, all those guys are Casey Neistat super famous back into like
Absolutely.
2007 and all that stuff. But uh, when I started vlogging that summer, I was like, okay, these are actually kind of cool vlogs. All my friends like them if they think they're good ideas. And then I started to be able to create things I saw in my mind, so I could like kind of see the idea. If I watched like a movie, I could remember like how a scene was set up and how a camera movement moved
Mhm.
during that shot. I could just see it in my eye, and like I couldn't explain it all the time to people, but I could just understand it. So that's when I started to be like, okay, I could probably make some money doing this stuff.
Mhm.
And then I got paid for a local coffee company asked me to make a video for them. So it was like a coffee shop
Mhm.
in my local town in Anna. And so I made that and I got paid like $500. And it took me like 2 hours to film it. And then I can't remember how long it took me to edit it. It was a terrible video. It was absolutely awful. But at the time, I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I shot it with a GoPro,
There.
which is crazy. That's crazy to say now. But I got paid for it. I was like, okay, That's more than I ever made do construction in like 2 weeks.
Mm,
So I made that in like 2 hours. I can do this thing, and that's where I was okay. So I should probably take it seriously and start figuring it out. And from there, I knew I had the creative side. I just didn't know a lot of stuff yet, so I just did a bunch of research on YouTube, how to do cameras. Just watch like everything. I'm talking like so much footage, so many videos, so many tutorials on how to use a camera. I had no idea how to use a camera when I dropped out of school. I could not use an actual camera, like a
mm,
I don't know if my cameras right, they're out there, but I didn't know how to do any of that stuff until I started watching videos and then implementing that like every single day, and that's when it started to make sense. Things started to click, and I
mhm.
got into weddings, and then weddings was good money, but it was pressure.
Yeah.
But the pressure didn't affect me because dropping out of school and doing all that stuff, that was the most stress that I had up
Mhm.
in my life. And also being a college athlete too, because you're dealing with that stress. You're dealing with, when you watch film, you're dealing with direct feedback in front of everybody all
Yeah.
the time, right? So
Mhm.
those things, because people in the creative field, a lot of people are like, oh, I never did weddings, so the pressure if I mess up, it's their special day and you don't come back from that. I never even thought about that ever. I was like, they're gonna pay a lot of money. I can make a really pretty video. I enjoy weddings, so that was fun,
Yeah.
and got into that and started making a little bit more money where you could breathe and like reinvest into the companies,
Mhm.
and listening to a lot of the people that are a lot of Gary Vee, a lot of I'm trying to think who else back then who were big, but everything they would say was reinvest into your stuff. If that's what you want to do, take the money they're making and put it into better gear, put it into yourself, like bet on yourself. So that's when I was started to do that, and it made a lot of sense, and I was able to get better stuff because I would just literally reinvest everything. I didn't save any money ever
Yeah.
because it was just like I needed a new lens, and the lens is $2,000, so I got to put that money into that.
I mean,
And so,
at that point, it's like saving money, getting that 10% yield in the stock market is not going to be
yeah,
worth that lens that could create the
yeah,
better videos, land the better client, and
yeah,
potentially 10x, 100x your money there.
100%. And that's why and I tell that to young kids all the time when they're because now it's the cool thing to get on crypto and do stock trading and all that stuff, but yeah, you can make money in those spots for sure. But if you're a kid and you're putting in $100 into crypto, like yeah, you one out of two, 300 million people might hit the lottery, but
Yeah.
that money is not going to make you actual money. It might make you if you get a 10x return, you're still not making very much money. So invest into yourself. If trading is what you want to do, 100% do that and reinvest into that stuff. But if you want to do something else in the world, like take that money and bet on yourself. That's the only way to build something and actually get a return on it. But it takes work. It takes a lot
Yeah.
of work. So
Developing the skills at that age, and really any
yeah.
age, is pretty invaluable. Would
Mhm.
you say, of the creative process, of the filming process, do you enjoy more the actual filming on the story concept and the storyboarding, or like sitting down with the raw footage and editing and putting it together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I enjoy the filming a lot, and I enjoy the editing a lot.
Okay.
The storyboarding and all that stuff I've never been one. I don't enjoy it as much. It's very very important. So, but for me, again, it goes back to that, and I've gotten a lot better over the years. You have to, for certain clients, you have to show them a storyboard or a treatment so they know what you're going to shoot, essentially.
Mhm.
But for years before that, I mean, it was just like run and gun, shoot, edit, like have it in your mind. So for me, a lot of it is in my brain. Even if we have a storyboard, I'm still going off my brain and not looking at the storyboard very often. But we have guys here that do that all the time.
Yeah.
So that's their bread and butter. They love doing that stuff. But for me, I love the filming. I love the way different lenses look and like getting different movements and doing all that stuff. And then the editing is just like kind of a creative playground where you can kind of just go in and like if it's a fun client that you have more creative control over, you can basically practice and do the craziest stuff you want to do
Mhm.
and get better and better and better whatever you're doing. So I really enjoy that part. Now, thankfully, I have kind of more control over what I edit and like the projects I take it on personally.
Yeah.
So I'll just take on a lot of things that I really enjoy doing. But I'll still get the occasional like really like grueling edit where it's like, oh, this is tough. But at some point you get into the flow and it's actually super enjoyable. So I'd say both. The storyboards not as much, but they're super important. So it's just part of it.
Yeah, I imagine like the storyboarding is important, but once you get to the skill level, or if you've had enough experience hours, you're like,
Hmm.
I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna film here. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need that concept, but I would
Yeah.
understand how a client may want that.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times they do want to see something, and then if I have some of the guys that are working on a project, they'll have a storyboard. If I'm
Yeah,
helping them out with something, I'll go off of that because it's their project, they're doing it.
that makes sense.
Um, yeah, but for me, don't really look at it that much because I just love it. Like if I go into a shoot or an edit, I already know what it's gonna look like in my head. or roundabout what I want it to be,
Hmm.
and so I'll just go and do it. And that's like when you get in the flow state, it's a blast. Time kind of just doesn't really exist anymore. So
That's amazing. Yeah, I've seen, I mean, for anybody who hasn't, seen your edits, they can of course see you on Instagram or Brotherdale on Instagram, and they're
yeah,
phenomenal. Your rain ones are so good. They
I
hype me
appreciate
up
that,
every
bro.
time.
Hey,
They're
let's go.
phenomenal.
I
But
appreciate that.
to wind it back a little bit, that first coffee shop in Anna that you made the
Yeah,
Not So Good video for, how did you land that? Like how was that your first one?
yeah. So basically, I'm trying to remember the guy's name now, but it'll probably come to me. I haven't talked to him in a long time. But basically, he was somebody that we knew. So my parents knew him at some point, and whenever I dropped out of college, I made it a point to. And Gary Vee actually, I put a lot of this on Gary Vee because he actually said a lot of this back in the day in like 2015. He's like, if you're gonna do something, like scream it out to everybody, like make sure everybody knows that you are doing whatever you're doing. So if you're doing videos, make sure everybody knows if they need a video made, Marcus does videos.
Hmm.
And just like that's pretty simple. It's a very simple thing. So I would just made sure I was posting on my stuff all the time. And then when I was talking to people, I just took every interaction like super seriously. So like, and not like, hey, I need to make you a video. It wasn't like that at all. It was just like talking to them. It's
Yeah.
like a regular relationship. And then something will come up where like, oh yeah, I own a coffee shop. Yeah, we're over here. Come by and get coffee sometime. I'm like, all right, cool. And then it just kind of sparked into, oh yeah, I make videos. You guys have a video for your stuff yet? It's like, no, we don't. We should get one done. Can you give me a price? I'm like, sure, perfect. So it was just like it was intentional conversation, but with no direct look for something in return. It was just
Yeah.
like, I want to know, what you're doing for business, like what you're gonna if you want anything on the creative side, but if not, completely fine, like totally cool. And so it just turned out to where they needed a video. And in those small towns, there's not really many people doing that stuff, especially back then. So it was really like something that was kind of more novel to everybody in that town. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it for sure. And then I gave him a price, and he said yes to it. And I was like, that's absolutely crazy. And but back then it was like $500 was like so much money. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that worked. But from there, I mean, it was the same conversation for clients even now, where you're just if you're going to network or whatever else, like a lot of it's not business at first. A lot of it's just getting to know somebody because people just literally do business with people who they know or they trust, or somebody that they trust has referred them. So that's really what it came down to. And now it's kind of the same thing where I'm going to Florida tomorrow afternoon, actually. That just got a call a few minutes ago. And have to go down and do and have this huge meeting with. I'll text you about it because I don't
Yeah.
think I can say it right
Yeah.
now.
No,
But
don't.
it's a really big person who lives in Florida, and I maybe you could probably put two and two together potentially, but but we have to go down there, and it was just from a relationship. So somebody that they trust and they know is working together, and then they referred us, and they referred me personally, just because we stayed connected and talked and helped him out with certain things, and so now we get to go down and potentially land a big deal. But it was all just relationship based. And obviously, work and portfolio that all that makes a difference.
Hmm.
So on both sides, but the relationship part of being in business is just as important as your work. It might be more important, to be honest. So
Yeah. Ab-
yes, that's yeah.
Absolutely. That's something that I've seen, from people I've been around, like just my dad, for example,
Yeah,
he
your dad's
owns,
great, by the way.
he,
I have a whole
he,
story with him too.
yeah, yeah, he owns, that business down in Southern Illinois,
Mhm.
the lake, the wedding venues and all that. But by far the best people person, just the night, like people
Yes.
love, and he doesn't hit me. He treats people good for the sake of treating them good, not for the sake of like
Yep.
getting a potential, business deal or any kind of relationship through that aspect. And I think that is huge. Like if you treat people well, doesn't matter who they are, what they do, you may
Yep.
find that down the road, like you're the person they turn to when they need something.
100%. That's the truest thing ever because like your dad was one of the first people that like I worked with for weddings because I did a lot of weddings
Mm-hmm.
at the resort, and but he was also always super nice. He's a nice dude, and I'm sure a lot of times he's probably stressed and probably had other things going on,
Right.
but you just have to cut that moment out for a second and just be nice to people, and eventually it comes back. I think the most important thing when it comes to like just money in general, if you're always searching for money and you're like constantly trying to get it, it will never come to you ever. And that's the same thing. When I say money, I mean like business, all this stuff. If you're always searching for it and like trying to frantically get it,
Mm-hmm.
it never comes to you. It's when you just like relax and like just do the things that you need to do, go through the motions and do all the right steps, then it comes to you. When you stop thinking about it all the time, then it starts to progress and things happen. But yeah, a lot of people will stress out over certain things and you just can't because it doesn't fix anything at all. You
Absolutely.
just gotta go with it. So
And I think that's huge. I don't. Do you know who Naval Ravikant is? He's like
sounds
money
really
guy.
familiar.
Money guy. He writes books on it. Just talks about it a lot. He
What's
is.
what's one of the books he wrote? 'Cause I feel like I know who that is.
It's like he hasn't wrote an official book. I think it's
Uh,
like in a compilation of like his sayings or like his teachings and stuff like that that other people
uh,
have done. But he always talks about like the abundance. Like there's plenty of
mhm.
money for everybody. Like you gaining money or somebody else gaining money doesn't mean you can take like gain any less money. And so having
Yes.
that mindset of like, okay, they did great. That doesn't mean I also can't do great. Let me be happy for them. Let me applaud them. Let me, be inspired
Mhm.
by them. But there's still plenty for to go around.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like that is like if you're genuinely happy for people when they're winning, then first of all, they notice that. It means
Mhm.
a lot to them because when you win and you had something great happen to you, the worst thing that can happen is somebody's like, oh, well, that's not that great. Like that just sucks because you're
Yeah.
like, dude, this is like something I worked hard for.
Yep.
And so it's the exact same thing when somebody else wins and like you were kind of salty about it because you're worried about your own stuff. It's
Yep.
insecurity from you,
Absolutely.
and then yeah, and then in turn, I mean, it's just not good energy. So like that is something that when people are like that, to put it in best perspective is nobody ever punches down. People that
Mm.
are up never punch down. It's always punching up. So if you're that person, then you're probably punching up, and that's not a good spot to be in. And you just go back to the drawing board and
Eh,
work a little bit harder.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, what I've found, particularly, I mean, with myself, is like we all have that innate instinct where it's like, maybe that's just the way we evolved, or like
Hmm.
scarcity mindset is like when somebody does good, you're like, oh, hey, and you have that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
base instinct initially, but then you need to step back and be like, hey, like that's amazing. Like,
yep.
yes, I'm I really respect what they've done. I want what they have, but they
Hmm.
earned it. They worked hard. They did amazing for that. And them achieving that doesn't take anything less from than me. So if people have that base instinct, I don't think like there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to
No, yeah,
flex that other muscle a little bit harder and like
I do. Yeah,
win with it.
100%. I couldn't say it any better. That's literally so true because like that. Yeah, everybody has that first reaction for sure. But I think that's also like making it to where like it's kind of like an alarm clock, like saying, "Hey, you should, probably start doing some more too." Like it's a good
Yeah,
motivator for sure. It shouldn't turn into negative energy where it makes you, salty or negative about somebody else. It's like, yeah, everybody can win, and if somebody if they win and then you end up winning and they're happy for you too, then you have a really good person on your side that you guys can do a lot with because those people, especially now in a lot of cities, like Nashville's pretty great. But there's a lot of cities like Miami, LA, especially New York,
hmm,
where a lot of people just either want to be around you for what you have, and they're not actually on your side.
yep,
It's hard to find real people. Is kind of the point. So when you find those people and you're really happy for them when they win, and when they're happy for you when you win, you can do a lot of stuff. And that's actually that situation I'm talking about. And we have to go to Florida tomorrow. It's a guy that I met here, and the one that put everything together, really good dude, super good dude. And
yeah,
he won at something, and I was super happy for him. And same thing, he refers business back over to us, and just a nice guy. And when you meet those kind of people, you don't want to let that go for sure. You just want to stay with those people, and if they win, support them all the way. It's incredible.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's so important. When you initially started, and I'm curious about how you feel now as well, but when you initially started, how did you get over if you experienced that
Mhm.
imposter syndrome? And if so, do you still sometimes experience that?
Yeah. So the imposter syndrome. This isn't going to be an interesting one because for me, how I got over that, I never really had it too much because the for this one thought, if if I want to do like the biggest things in this space, if I want to speak in front of a lot of people,
Hmm.
if I want to be on the biggest projects and do all this stuff, the only way you can do it is if you can do the little things or even the things that you're currently challenged with well. So
Hmm.
if you're gonna go talk to 10 people, you have to get out there and you have to be confident. You have to be like know what you're talking about. You need to have yourself together. You might be a little bit nervous and you might
Hmm.
think like for a second that you shouldn't be up there. But if the goal is to be up here and you're still down here and you're having thoughts about you can't be that person or whatever, then you'll never do these big things. So like that was my mindset. Like if I'm gonna do the little coffee shop video, I'm gonna do it and believe that I can do this and I'm supposed to be there. I have to believe that. So I can't work on a big project for the UFC or for something, whatever else, for an
Mhm.
energy drink company or anything like that, if I can't do the little things. So that's always been my mindset from the very beginning, because I just knew, because I always heard about imposter syndrome. I'm like, I can't operate in that level if I don't believe in myself. And I believe that I can have the best, because I'm also, I'm a Christian. So uh, God, this is something that's not taught a lot
Mhm.
in church. I don't, it's not taught enough, at least, to
Okay.
where God wants abundance for you. So if you want to live an abundant life, you have to believe that abundance is there. And so you should never think like, oh, I'm not enough for this. I shouldn't. You'll always have those thoughts as a human, but when it goes back to not operating in fear and believing that there's abundance for you, then those thoughts, they have to go somewhere else. If you can operate in that level, they can't stay with you. You can't believe in abundance and also feel like you shouldn't be there. They don't gel. It's kind of like being angry and smiling. You
Yeah.
can't do both, right? So that's kind of where that went. And yeah, I don't believe there's boundaries to where anybody can go. So I try not to put any like kind of bind on me where I can't
Yeah.
do something. I know there's like things that are hard to achieve, and it takes a lot to achieve those things, but I don't put a timeline on it. So I believe I can have a private jet one day.
Yeah.
Just it's not here right now. This wasn't here when I believed I could do this, 8 years ago when I dropped out of college. So, but now it's here. It just wasn't
Yeah.
mine then, but it was always mine. It just wasn't the time yet. If that
That's
makes
so
sense.
fascinating to me because, and I think that's a tremendous gift, and I completely agree with everything that you're saying. But there are people, myself
Hmm.
included, like I've been into fitness my entire life.
Hmm.
I know quite a bit about fitness, probably more than the average person or a lot more
Yeah,
than the
you're
experienced
jacked,
person.
bro.
I spent a lot of time learning about it, studying about it. But still, if somebody's like, "Hey man, if I had to go talk to somebody about, about fitness, I
Mhm.
know a lot about it, but you still experience that degree of like, okay, but am I qualified to teach them? Like, do I? And so
Mhm.
that's something that, a lot of people have to overcome. And I have, and I do on a lot of things. Like, I'm able
Mhm.
to rationally talk myself out of it. It's like, hey, no, that's just, the side of my brain that doesn't want to be uncomfortable. Same thing about fitness. Like, to
Yep.
excel in health and fitness, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. This applies to things outside of it as well. Like, yes, you're going to be uncomfortable initially, but you just need to get through that, and then you'll become comfortable, and then you can get uncomfortable more and more and more and grow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's so true, and that's 100%. That's for me, it 100% exists. Like that is a real thing that you have to do. But it's also, if you find like comedy in it as well, which
Mm.
kind of sounds funny, but like if there's been a few times where, for example, we were with Dana White a few months ago in his office, and in my head for like the first 20 minutes, I was just like laughing at myself in my head. I'm like, there is no way like this is actually happening. I should not be here right now. There's like, but I am here, and so
Yeah.
you kind of laugh off. It's like, yeah, technically you shouldn't be there. Like, what qualified you for it?
Yeah.
Well, it was all the work you put in. Like you did put in the work, even if you don't feel like you did. You have put in the work, so you deserve it, because nobody else is different than you. We're all humans. Like Elon Musk is the same exact human as everybody else. He
Yeah.
just put in a lot of work, and maybe there's a little bit of luck involved, and he's like he did all these steps, but he did put in the work for it. So it's a funny thing at first. You can laugh at yourself, like I don't know how I'm in this situation, but I am here, and we have to perform because
Yep.
we're here. So and it comes back to that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. Something that I always do is like, okay, I feel uncomfortable about this scenario.
Mhm.
What's the worst thing that can happen? And you talk through it. It's like, I'm not going to die. Like,
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
be fine. I'm just
yeah,
going to maybe say something that I don't want to say, or say something, but I'm going to be totally fine. I'll recover from that. The worst is
yeah.
somebody may chuckle at me. I'm fine. And so you just need
Yes.
to talk yourself and rationalize the situation. And then, like you said, perform, just excel, just do the
Mhm.
task, which I
Yeah,
think is huge.
100%. That's what it comes down to for sure.
So as somebody who is in the creative field, who's in, social media a lot, I think a lot of the issue with today's world is people consume. Like, they
Hmm.
consume TV, they consume social media, they consume TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They're always consuming, and whether or not that is good content, like you can be listening to amazing podcasts all the time, watching documentaries all the time. You're still just consuming. How
Hmm.
do you navigate that world of like spending a lot of time? I'm assuming you spend quite a bit of time like
Yeah.
watching more content? Like, how do you consume or navigate the world of like consuming versus creating?
Yeah, that's a you have good questions, bro. This is
I
awesome.
appreciate it.
Um, so yeah, so the consuming part for me, I try to break it up into because a lot of it is like I have to consume stuff so I know what's
Yeah.
happening in the world. So I know like obviously new ways to edit, new things that are happening on trends, new ways that some of our clients that we're helping them with content and like helping them with like knowing what kind of content they need to make. If they're doing their own content, we're consulting them. So I have to go and make sure I'm going through, and sometimes it'll be, I'll be scrolling through. I'm like, okay, I've been on here for a long time,
Yeah.
but I try to break it down into this part is business, and then if I'm gonna scroll and do Instagram stuff, because I enjoy posting on Instagram, I enjoy posting in general and doing that kind of stuff, but I have to separate into two categories, and then the other side is when you're consuming all this stuff. A lot of people will consume, and then they want to do the action. So they'll watch like the motivational podcast or they'll watch information on different stuff. But if you never do the action, then you never do the thing, and the thing never gets done, and then you're in the
Mm,
same spot. So none of the motivation actually helps. So I'm always like trying to remember, like if I watch the stuff, if I watch a new way to edit, if I save a video on Instagram and put it in my folder that I have for all these new videos, if I never actually make that edit and make that idea come to life, then it doesn't count for anything. And I'm not going anywhere with the business. So I'm always trying to like take the information I have and then put it into real life at some point. And I try to do like every single week if I'm working on something new, or if I watch something that was an informational podcast, I'm trying to put that into my brain to put it into action if it's on a meeting or somewhere else. I'm just trying to bring it into real life. And then for the consumption part, just like normal. I mean, I have the same problems everybody else does. I
yeah.
mean, I'll start scrolling. I'm like, oh no, it's been too long. So I try to do that. But if you get busy enough, then you kind of forget to do that kind of stuff too. So you're actively in life doing stuff like in the business and doing whatever else. That's a good way to, if you stay busy and you kind of get away from scrolling too long. But I think you just have to be able to take the information you're hearing and actually put action into it. Because if you don't, motivation only lasts for a few minutes and then it's gone.
Absolutely.
And then action is the only thing that actually counts. And you'll know. I mean, you will always know. It will come through in anxiety. It'll come through in
Hmm.
your bank account. It'll come through in your relationships. Everything will come through if you're not taking action on it. And so you'll know. There'll be alarm clocks, but some people don't want to take action on it, and that's just what it is. So yeah.
I completely agree. It's like navigating that line between consuming and creative. I think we all start in this world like it's our base instinct, or for
Hmm.
most of us, is we consume. We
Yep.
watch television, we watch TV, we watch movies, we listen to podcasts, we read books, whatever that is, we're always consuming. And when we're bored, we naturally navigate towards what can we consume to satiate that boredom. And I feel like once you break that barrier or consciously try to create, like make something, give something to the world, the more you do that, the more you want to do that. So like
Yes.
when you start to, like, for me, like, it was journaling. I recently started
Hmm.
doing that like a couple months ago. I was like, I needed something. Like I needed an outlet for something, to be creative, to write, to give something back to the world, even if it's not anything that anybody's ever going to read. Like I don't need
Hmm.
anybody to ever read my journal. But as I started creating, putting pen to paper, whether that, and my journals aren't just like journal entries, they're like graphs, they're data, they're just anything, they're drawings, they're
That's
whatever it
awesome.
is. I like try to like make a Da Vinci style notebook where it's just anything that's in my brain, I want to put it down onto this paper.
That's
And
awesome. I didn't know that. That's super cool, actually.
yeah, it's been huge for me. I got the, again, Peter McKinnon, a video I watched today was on him talking about that, because I think it's super fascinating. But as I did that more often, like, okay, you get into this idea where it's like, I want to create more, whether that be like drawing, whether that be playing a musical instrument, picking up a
Hmm.
hobby that creating a podcast or media, whatever that is. And you get into that habit of creating versus consuming.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
my personal take.
Yeah, because I mean, you're right. Because you get, like in the very beginning, you start posting or creating whatever, and you don't get a lot of feedback on it yet
Mhm.
because it's brand new. But then you start to do a little bit more, and you start to get a little bit more feedback, and like things start to make sense more. And you start to enjoy the process because you see people starting to see it maybe, and then you kind of get into that spot where like, okay, I really enjoy this, and then I have this one person who gets inspired by this. I'm going to do it a little bit more so they can see this stuff, and it kind of just starts to snowball. But in the beginning, that's what, I mean, for a lot of people, they'll do what they really want to do, but then it's like a little bit tough in the very beginning. I think Mr. Beast talks about this. He's like, make your first 100 videos and they're not gonna get any views. Then after that, you're probably gonna get some views because you're just compounding that motion over and over and over again. And there's just a startup time. It just takes a little bit of time to get into that. But the consuming is just so easy that
Yeah.
it's just automatic dopamine. Like you can just watch something and it's great. But the real enjoyableness is after you start creating and then you build something, and that's when life gets amazing. It just takes that weird time that just is a grind, and that's just there's no getting around it. It never will change. This is how it is.
Absolutely. And that's what really separates people is like, and
Mhm.
it's a grind for not just like a month, not just 2 months, not just
Yeah.
3 months, but like years. And so what you said, like initially earlier on in when we were talking, you said like you loved creating the video, you loved editing, you loved creating
Mhm.
the video. And for you, it was enjoyable and it's something that you knew you wanted to do. Uh, for me, and again, you chased that idea. You were successful because you weren't chasing money
Mhm.
through video. You were just doing video, and the money naturally came, and the
Yep.
project came. Versus, I've done a lot of experiences where I've been in fitness, or I've done things where I'm like, okay, this is the end result I want. This is how I'm going to get it. I didn't necessarily enjoy what I was doing, and those
Yeah.
things failed because I hated what I was doing. But
Yeah.
you just have that mentality is like, oh, I'm just going to work hard, and you work hard on it day in and day out, even if you don't enjoy it, and then eventually you
Mhm.
burn out. Versus taking a step back and just being like, okay, I'm not going to chase the money. I'm not going to chase whatever it is. I'm just going to find the thing that I love, find the thing that I
Yes.
want to create, and that changes things.
And yeah, I think too, if you have, when you find that thing, and everybody can find it because they know, everybody knows what they love to do,
Mhm.
depending on, the situation, if they can actually feasibly do it. But if you find that, I think if you're blessed enough to do that, and then what you have to do is you have to pair it with something that really means a lot to you. So why you're doing it. And if you pair your why to your love of doing it, and then obviously the motivation, if you have a work ethic, then you can't really be stopped because when you get to that spot of burnout, well, then your why, if it's strong enough, will take you through that burnout. Because burnout doesn't last forever. It's just
For sure.
there's a point in there where something is wrong, and you have to fix that thing. You're not sure what it is at first, but you'll eventually find it. But the only way to find it is if you don't quit, and you won't quit because you have a why. And you have to find the why. The why is the most important thing because there's so many times in the 8 years where it would have been so easy to quit, but you can't because there's for me my why is a lot with my family. Like I have my
Mhm.
parents and I have a bunch of siblings, so I'm the second oldest, and the uh the kids are. I mean, I have a 4-year-old sister,
Yeah.
so she's very young, and they're all same parents. My parents are great, but for her and for all my siblings that are younger, I mean, it's my little brothers are 21 or 20, 16, like 13 and 9, and then 4. So I have 9 siblings. I know you have a lot of siblings too.
Yep.
So you get this. But like your siblings are looking up to you. Like they're watching all the things you do. You're basically their hero because they're like, that's my big brother. He's doing this stuff.
Mhm.
And so for that, I can't quit. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Quit? Like I can't. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And my parents, I mean, my dad's worked hard his whole life. He's still working hard. Like I want to retire him one day, and if I quit, like, there's no loyalty to your family if you just give up. So that's my why. So it's a very, very big why, and it makes you motivated to have those long days and early mornings and do whatever it takes. You have to do what's required because there's a price to everything, and if you do what's required, you'll make it. If you don't do what's required, you won't make it. You can't negotiate the price. It's impossible, and
Yeah.
that's the baseline. But it
That,
starts with the why.
that's a super powerful why, I think,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah,
Like you said, like how can you quit with that being your why right there?
yeah,
Um, your wife, how has she
yes.
been able to support or been a part of this journey, and how has she handle like these long days and these long hours? Because her why would have to be just as strong.
Uh-huh. Mm. That's a great question, and actually, no one's ever asked me that question. Well, that's like the most. That is such a good question for a lot of people because cause I met her when I was 22, and she was 18, and so we actually met a long time ago, and we didn't know who each other were back in the day. But I played soccer in St. Louis with the club team, so it's the MLS team now.
Mhm.
They have like 12s, U14s, all the way up. And so I think I played U14s through U23s. And we played in the summer for college. But she was dating somebody back in the day. She was probably 13 at the time. I might have been 16, somewhere in there. And she was dating somebody on my younger team. So it was like that, the team I was on, but the younger team, we'd all travel together. So I would see her every once in a while at our training facility because we had this training facility and other teams would, all of our teams would train on the same nights during the week. And so we met then, which is hilarious. So after college, she ended up met over Instagram again because we had mutual friends from
Mhm.
McKendree, which is wild. So that's kind of the reason why I went to school. I didn't even know. Met my wife, kind of
Yeah.
through that. But when we met, it was right when I was probably 2 years into doing freelance video work, and I still wasn't like super like I wasn't successful at all. I didn't have a lot of money at all back then, like at all, like not anything. So we met, and she like when you meet a girl and you like her a lot, and you guys are hanging out and doing all this stuff, it takes a lot of attention away from what you're trying to do. If you have a normal job, it's not as problematic for sure.
Mhm.
But if you don't have that, and you have to make sure you stay disciplined through that stuff. That's the hardest thing. And for a lot of young guys, I'm sure they can relate to this. Like, or anybody really, if you meet a girl, it's going to take your time away from whatever else you're doing because you don't want to do this work when you go hang
Mhm.
out with your girl and go on a date and do whatever else. So that was the biggest thing when we first started dating. I was literally in like the most grind like in my life. Like I had to do all this stuff. Like there was no other paycheck coming in. I had to either do videos and do these meetings and do whatever else during the time. And she was not used to that life at all. But she actually was a huge like the first few months were it was tough because I had to balance the work and then hanging out with her. And she lived in St. Louis, so it was 3 hour or 2 hours away from where I was living at the time. So it was kind of long distance. But she'd come down and then I'd go up there. But over the years, like her she was like committed the whole time and she loved what I was doing. So she was able to understand from the beginning, like you have to have this time to do this stuff, and then you need to make some time for me, whenever you can, especially if you can. And that was probably my biggest problem, and it's still a problem now where I have to make sure I
Mhm.
give the time because I can go on those times where I just literally am just doing what I have to do all the time and kind of forget about our relationship side where you have to be romantic, you got to bring home flowers, you got to do all
Mhm.
that stuff. Her credit, I mean, she's been through a bunch of stuff with me from the very beginning. Like we lived in a small 400 square foot apartment next to the police station, and then a crazy house on the other side. So it was like a ward where they like bring people there for like treatment,
Yeah.
and then the police station was here, and we were right in the middle. So we would have like homeless people, and then people getting arrested over here, and then people over here screaming. It was just a crazy time, but she was cool with it. And I don't know how she was cool with it because I didn't have anything to offer her at the time.
Mhm.
I told her the vision of it. I said I was gonna, get us out of the situation. We're gonna go to a city eventually and have all these things, which is now reality, which is crazy. But she stuck with me the whole time, and then ended up moving in, and we moved from there to another little spot. But it was a whole thing all the way up, and even now she's still like super supportive, and she's been when I first started Brotherdale. This is probably the biggest test where she was in Illinois, and I was driving to Nashville um, every week every week, literally. So I would drive 3 hours up, work the week, come back on the weekend, hang out with her, drive back,
Mhm.
and do the whole thing over and over again for a year straight. And she was at home literally every single week by herself, and she was working another job. She was a waitress for a little while, and then she worked in the med spa. She put herself through esthetician school for all the
Mhm.
skin stuff, and she did all that stuff. And for that year, we probably saw each other maybe 40 days out of the year, maybe,
Nice.
which is insane. But she just stuck through it and like understood like there's light at the end of the tunnel. And obviously there were struggles, there were fights, there were all that stuff. It was like normal people. Like, it wasn't like
Mhm.
we're all happy. It was not that at all. But it was a struggle, and she stuck through it and was the best. And now she gets to do whatever she wants to do. Teaches Pilates. She enjoys her life. She has friends, and she's social and does all that stuff. But she's a real one, and I'm glad that I met her when I met her because I know now, like from a lot of my friends that aren't in the company, but other friends that are single and they're 28, 30 years old, like this is tough out here because a lot of girls, women are great, but a lot of people, even guys, you're looking for a certain thing. You're not looking
Mhm.
for the person. You're looking for money. You're looking for an easier life, whatever it is. You're not always looking for, uh, you know, a real connection. And so being able to have that with nothing to offer is it's an incredible feeling. And so she's like, yeah, she's the best thing ever.
Yeah, I imagine that
Yeah,
that's huge. Finding
yeah,
her at that time and being able to go through that together, and then
hmm
now experience where you are now, which I can confidently say is still just the beginning of what
yeah, yeah,
Brotherdale will be, is invaluable. Like,
yeah.
she's not there for any other reason but you guys and your
Yeah,
relationship was, which is amazing.
completely true. Yeah, I wish she was. Sometimes I'm like, I make the joke where like I wish she was there for the money more because I could just like be like, hey babe, go and enjoy your day. But she's like, I want to be with you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, sounds great. So it's a funny thing where she's really just not. She's not in it for money. She's in it for because she actually loves me, which is incredible, and right back at her. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, you can't buy that kind of stuff. That's literally something that was just a gift, which is great.
Do you guys have to have the conversation sometimes where you're like, hey, we're still in our, our growing season financially. Like
Yeah.
we want to prioritize our relationship where we can, but it's obviously going to have to take a little bit of a back burner because you can't do both.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, that's something that we're pretty clear on. Like, for me, I've been trying to take certain evenings and certain days. If it's a Saturday or a Sunday, if it's half the day, like that's our time, just do whatever. But on days where, like even now, like I'm not going to be home until probably 9 or 10 tonight, and I'm open. She knows that, and it's okay because she knows that's how it goes. And I called her earlier, so I have to go to Florida, and she knows those are the things that you have to kind of give up for right now until we get to a certain spot where then nobody complains, later on when everybody can go, hang out on the beach for a few months
Mhm.
and do whatever you want. That's not the complaining part. The part now is the hard part. So if you can focus here, then you're good. And she understands that completely, which is great. She's a really smart. She's super smart. She's smarter than me for sure. She's just and she's a hard worker. She had to do all the hard jobs before she didn't have to do the hard jobs, which
Yeah.
is a huge thing. And she gets the time difference, and that's a good thing. We still have our problems and
Yeah.
whatnot,
Of course.
obviously, and I don't blame her because I do have to take a lot of time away from that. But it's also really fun whenever we get to go do something cool with her or bring her to an event or something that we're doing, and she can see that life. Because I know like 2 years ago I was doing all these things, and then she was at home not being able to do that because I wasn't at the spot where I could bring somebody with me. And so now I get to bring her every once in a while on certain stuff. And it's like, it's cool to know like she gets to experience the same things sometimes.
Yeah.
Because for those few years I was doing all this stuff. And then I'm like, well, I can tell her the stories, but I can't relate to her on that because she can't relate to me on it because she's not been around it. So being able to get to that spot where you can bring her on certain things is a blast.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I imagine it is, especially because like she would be like an unseen member of the team. Like she's 100%
Mm,
part of Brotherdale, like through
yep.
you and through the inception, but she doesn't necessarily get to go on. She experiences a lot of the hardship
Yeah.
through you and not having you around, but she
Yep.
doesn't necessarily get to experience a lot of the adventure, going to these places, meeting these people,
Yes.
doing those things. So I I think I would imagine that'd be super rewarding for you to, as well as her, to have those times where you can bring her along.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's absolutely fantastic, and yeah, just the whole thing. I mean, she gets to come here and talk to the guys, and they're all friends, and she enjoys everything. But at the same time, it's very cool that she can separate it and go and do her Pilates and do her training and stuff, that kind of stuff because she enjoys that a lot.
Yeah.
She's not passionate about coming here to work for us at all, and I love that because I
Yeah.
having the separation is amazing because you don't have to worry about anything. Like it's weird if you have a wife that's working with you or working for you, and then it's just a nice separation where she loves this stuff for me, and then she's like, "All right, I'm leaving. I'll see you later," and then she goes, "That's her thing,"
Yeah.
which is just it's awesome.
That's huge. Yeah, my wife, I was fortunate to meet her
Mhm.
three years ago. We've been married for 7, 8 months, something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And then you guys
it's
got married. Yeah, I wasn't sure how long ago that was.
yeah, we got married in May of last year, so I guess like 10 months. But I completely agree. My wife's smarter than me, harder working
Mhm.
than me. She's in medical school. She gets up and she's Boston qualified. She trains for running. She studies all day, every day, and she just
Yeah,
does it on repeat. I'm like, okay, I have no excuses for doing stuff that are you know in my mind easier. Like I don't
yeah,
understand how she does what she does and studies for the way she studies, and so it's super inspiring to have a partner who is smarter than you, works harder than you, but brings the best out of you in that instance.
yeah. Definitely. I don't know how the girls do it either. Like they can get up early and they can hit a Pilates class or some kind of group
Yeah.
class and like then go to work and then come back. I'm like, I don't know how you guys do all this stuff. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
absolutely. She's like, okay, we're getting up tomorrow at 5:30. I've got to run 10 miles. I'm like, fine, I'll get up. I'll do something. And
Yeah,
so, yeah,
okay.
I go to,
I'll
I
make
go
you
to the
food.
gym.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is very inspiring. So give us the grand picture. So Brotherdale is obviously, well, I don't know. It's big enough to be working with large brands,
Mhm.
UFC, or talking with those people, but what is the
Yeah.
end goal? Like, where do you want it to be?
Yeah, shoot, that's a good question. My end goal is to build the best creative agency in the country. That's my end goal. So I've always thought that I have like 200 or 300 employees.
Mm.
That's like where I think we're going to be at one day. I think it's probably bigger than that. But I just want to work on the best campaigns, work with the biggest clients, be able to during this time be able to go speak to people. I want to do public speaking and be able to be in front of thousands of people and help them with their problems and talk about things that I've learned and all that stuff. That's like where I want it to be at, and I know it's going to be there at some point. And then
Mhm.
we're going to have a massive studio that's going to be you know thousands of square feet, like huge,
Yeah.
and be able to have teams and people work on different projects and have all that stuff. And right now, like it's like the inception of it now, where there's people that have their own offices, and I don't even talk to half the people half the day, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And so I can see it happening. It's just a wild process, but that's where my end goal is. I want to be able to speak to people, help people, bring in workshops, do all this stuff, help newer creators start their own careers and do that kind of stuff. And then work with big brands, and then also be a connector for people. I love doing that kind of stuff. I've been able to work with different people and help and connect deals and all that stuff. And it's a really, outside of doing the video and the creative side of stuff, that's like one of my big passions, is to be able to speak to people and help them connect and help deals get made and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And it's a fun process. So that's the overall goal for Brotherdale. And then also, if you're starting a company like this, or any company really, but the goal is to eventually sell one day too. So we're
Okay.
structuring it in a way to where we do want to get acquired at some level at some day. And if
Yeah.
that's 5 years from now, if that's 10 years from now, who knows? But that's the goal. You want to build something to be able to sell it and to be able to exit at some point, and then be able to go do whatever else you want to do in life. If you want to, pursue a different passion, if you want to stay in the same passion and do whatever you want to do with that, but that would be the ultimate goal at some
Okay.
point. But for me, I mean, it feels far away, which I know it's not extremely far away, but I want to get to a point where it's one of the biggest creative companies and it's doing incredible, and I still want to retain that ownership and
Yeah.
enjoy that moment for as long as possible. And then when it comes to acquisition, being able to do that at some point would be incredible, and it will
Do you,
happen.
do you feel at all? Do you still feel as passionate and as driven as when you originally started, or are you starting to lose steam a bit, or do you like have you changed at all in that aspect?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I'm probably more passionate now
Okay.
about everything.
I would
It's just in
imagine.
different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is in different ways. You start to have different problems and different goals, and you operate a little differently. Because like before, me and Hunter would just be like, "Hey, we're gonna make this video for this brand. Let's just do it." And now it's like there's meetings you have to do. You have to talk to people. You have to get the treatments. You have to go and brief the team. You got to make sure you're gonna have the right guy on the right project. There's just different things, and then you're also managing, how people operate in life. Like every guy has a different personality, and they all have little problems that pop up. So you got to
Hmm.
help them out with those kind of things. If it's for a project, or if it's personal, or if it's they have an emergency that happens, all those different things. So it's a different operating system, but it's definitely the same passion, and it's actually more passion because you have to go and make sure you're going to war for the guys that you're hired that are
Yeah.
hired, and then they trust you to be able to have a paycheck every 2 weeks. You have to go out there and it's going to battle for your team essentially, and it's the coolest feeling too because it's not so much like a pressure thing. It's more of like it's kind of an honor to be able to like go out and have a team of guys that look up to you and know like you're trying to have the best foot forward essentially. And so it's really it's more of a it's like an adventure kind of
Yeah.
because everything's new almost every single day. You're like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, what is this? I didn't know that it could even be a problem. That's a huge problem. Let's try to fix that. So it's definitely it keeps it interesting, but 100% passionate, and I don't have any like regrets or like sick of anything. It's just you just gotta do what you gotta do, and it's fun.
I mean, like you said, it's an adventure, and you're very grateful and
Mhm.
inspired. And where you're at, are there things that you miss from when it was just you smaller? Like you could, are there things that you miss from
Yeah,
that era?
yeah. I mean, I think just probably just the idea of just, like more like I guess like just a slower time in the day where you can just kind of relax and be like, okay, this is cool. Like you can maybe enjoy the certain moments a little bit more because it's
Hmm.
not super rushed all the time and whatnot. But it's also that's short lived, so because when you had those moments, you really wanted the moments where it was hectic and things aren't happening. So, but it also makes you enjoy the weekends or the small moments where you get to, if I get to go drive on a back road in my car and it's a sunny day, I'll enjoy that way more now than I did back then.
Okay.
So it's kind of a trade-off at the same time. But I would say, yeah, probably just the slower time and like being able to think a little bit more by yourself.
Mhm.
Because I mean, probably by yourself moments more because I'm
Okay.
not alone very often now.
Mhm.
If I'm my drive to work and then when I get home, Autumn's normally there. So I don't have a lot of alone time. If I go to the gym, obviously, when I go to the gym, I'm by myself and I try to keep that separate. But that would probably be the most thing that I probably miss, I would say,
Yeah.
back in the day. And I guess whenever you're starting like any kind of new thing that you're doing, if you're in the creative field, like you get a new camera, you're super hyped about it. Now, if I get a new camera, I kind of already know what it's
Yeah.
about. So there's not that newness is not there, but there's newness in other things. So
Yeah.
you're kind of just changing the scenario a little bit. But I would never go back. I wouldn't trade anything for sure. It's
That's
incredible.
that's a super good way to look at it. Is like,
Yeah.
yes, there are things that you miss, but there's things that you would miss here. And so just being
Yeah.
able to be happy where you're at, knowing like,
Yeah.
yeah, things will always be evolving and changing. And there are
Yeah.
going to be times when I'm ahead down the road and I'll look back at this time, but right now I'm at this time looking ahead down
Mhm.
the road and wishing I was there. So just being happy where you're at and being able to
Yeah.
enjoy that time.
I think it's being grateful. Like
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. If you're just grateful for things, a lot of things just become easier, and a lot of problems just go away. If you're just
Mhm.
super just happy you're already here. Like I think I was talking to Dylan, one of our guys, the other day. We had like an early morning like an early morning flight, or we were landing early, something like that. And he was tired, and I was tired. He's like, "Yeah, bro, this is tough." I'm like, "Yeah, it sucks, but guess what? We're getting to do this
We're
stuff.
here.
This
Yeah.
is sweet. Like this is awesome." So like, yeah, we're tired, but also we're here and we're having a great time. He's like, "Yeah, you're all right about that. It's incredible." I'm like, "Yeah, like tiredness doesn't last very long, but being able to do this every single day is incredible." So that changes a lot of the problems that you would stress out about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gratitude is huge, and that's something that consciously still developing. Is like that's a muscle you got to flex. That's a muscle you got to train, and you
Mhm.
train it through repetition. Being grateful. It's easy to be grateful when it's easy to be grateful.
Yes.
You got to
Yes.
be grateful when it's not easy, and that's how you develop that
Yep.
mindset and that muscle. Uh,
Definitely, bro.
so I'll let you go here in a second, but
Yeah, you're
if
fine. You're fine.
like my sisters, the twins,
Mhm.
Mike and Molly, they're 18, finishing up their senior year of high school. They
Mhm.
love creating content. My sisters, she's got a camera. They both got YouTube videos. They've got an Instagram page that they have a couple reels that hit a few million views and stuff.
Let's
And
go. Let's
yeah,
go.
they're crushing it. They post every single week on YouTube for like the past multiple years. Like they've been doing it forever. They're
Yeah.
studs. What would you say to new creators? Like, what would be the best route? Like, what should they start to master or implement first?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, this is what I was talking to my sister about because she just started my second oldest sister. So she's
Okay.
not my oldest sister, but she's
Yep.
the second to the oldest sister, if that
Gotcha.
makes sense. She's like 22 years old, and she just started doing YouTube basically full time. But like she's not making money from it yet, but
Hmm.
she started to post every single day. So for the past like 2 months, she's been doing YouTube video after YouTube video every single day, posting a video, and then she had a few that hit. And when she first started, I was like, "Listen, you're gonna start, and you're gonna really feel like it's not worth it. Like, you'll have the beginning fun, and then it'll get to that spot where it's not very fun." But I was like, "Just don't quit. Just keep going. Keep doing the reps over and over and over again." And then she just hit. I think she hit a few. She hit 500 subs a few weeks ago, which is
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then
Amazing.
she had a few videos that got a bunch of views on YouTube, and just organic, just out of nowhere. And I was like, "See, you start to see it actually happening." And so then I told her, like, keep studying how the people that you're inspired by, study their stuff because you can see how they're putting things together and just take it and make it your own. Like you don't copy them, but you take the little elements
Mhm.
and make things your own out of there because nobody's reinventing or inventing anything really. They're just taking ideas and then creating their own style from those ideas. So that's really the biggest thing for new creators or creators that are trying to make it in this place. Essentially, is don't quit on anything. Stay consistent the whole time, and then whoever is the reason why you're creating content or whoever's inspiring you at the moment and those kind of things, go and study their work, see how they're doing it, and then take all the valuable things that are like formulas and how they're making their content, all that stuff. Take those things and literally copy those things, but then make the style your own style. You're not copying anybody, you're just taking the formulas, because Mr. Beast talks about this all the time, where he has a formula for his videos to keep attention. And he'll go in and he'll roast other people's content because he does a lot of consulting with people. And he'll tell them, hey, your video sucks here, here, and here, and here. This is why. And you can't argue with him because the
Mr.
stats are
Beast.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Mr. Beast. So the stats are there. He can make views. So it's the same concept. Go to whoever you're doing, and they're doing very well, like Peter McKinnon, how he started. You can't just start something. If you want to be a vlogger, like, it's very, very hard to just start vlogging every single day and then become a vlogger. He had to do tutorials first. He had to bring value in certain areas and then get to where he's going for what he wanted to do. He wanted to be in the video space and do that kind of stuff. For Casey Neistat, he started vlogging in the beginning because he was one of the very, very beginning guys who were doing that. He had a whole different look. So look at how these people are doing it, take their examples, and then run with those kind of things, and then just do it a lot. Do it a lot and put out content. And then again,
OG Casey Neistat was a different animal. I love
different
watching
animal,
his
bro.
videos.
Yeah.
They were crazy.
He was a big inspiration too.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the reasons that one of the guys that inspired me a lot back in the day. But again, like, he just stayed consistent for a long time as well, because he was trying to make money and be a filmmaker, and doing that stuff ended up catching him his first big thing with Nike. He did a whole Nike campaign, and but just from making YouTube videos and putting his stuff out there and just being consistent on that side. And then when it comes to the creators too that are new, like, if you're not a big creator yet, you don't have a huge following. There's so much money on the table that you can make and make yourself a business out of that stuff, because a lot of these companies and brands and partnerships, they don't want creators with 1 million, 2 million, 3 million followers, or 10 million followers. Most of the time they can't afford them, and most of the time they don't have the metrics that line up with their audience and people who are going to buy their stuff. For example, one of the companies for Bang Energy is one of our clients we worked with and for a while and did a lot of stuff for them. They have these influencers that they were talking about that have 3-5 million followers, but when it comes to selling product and moving products, their micro influencers do way better. So people with 10,000 followers, people with 30,000 followers, maybe 100,000 followers, maybe 500,000 followers, still smaller following base. Literally, a girl with 30,000 followers triple the amount of sales that a girl with 3 million followers had.
Jeez.
Because her audience, they were really following them, they were engaged. Yeah. If you have a small audience, but they love what you do, they're following your story, doing all this stuff, they're going to do what you do. If you post about something, if you post about a comfortable blanket, they're probably going to go buy that blanket because they actually are invested in your stuff. And so those metrics, if you just treat your stuff like an actual business, no matter how small you are, if you take the actual business side seriously, you can make it into a living pretty fast. But you got to think business wise, and that was the separation from being a creator and then also enjoying the business side and actually taking it seriously. A lot of people will be a creator or be a creative and then be shooting photos and doing all this stuff, but they can never get the money right because the business isn't operating correctly. If you're going to switch yourself to business first and be able to make that flow, then you can be creative as you want, make money on it. And that's the only reason why we have Brotherdale, is because we took the business part, made it an actual business, and then made sure we were good at the creative too. We had to be good at both.
Yeah.
Because if you're not good at one, you're gonna go nowhere. So that's probably the best thing I would say to the creators in general.
That's like the truth bomb right there.
Yeah.
That's huge. Just being able to treat them as two separate skills you need to be good at. Yes, if you're exceptionally good, like if you're the best in the world, like
yes.
if you just do this, people will come. But only one person can be the best in the world. So you need to be really good at the other part, and then it doesn't really matter if you're the best in the world. You can be really, really good and still 100%. Be really, really successful.
Yeah, and those things are it's super, like, it's in the air. Like, yeah, they're going to be the people that stand out because that's the 1%, and there will always be that. But you might be in the 2%, but you still won't have that spot. But a lot of people, you might have a really good charismatic, attitude. People are drawn to that. But the people that are the most stale can still do really, really well in the marketplace because they have the other skills behind the scenes that you can't even see. So they're making those deals and doing a lot of stuff because they're really good on this side. They might lack a little bit on this side. But if you have all these other skills on here, you might not be as good at business. If you're still trying a little bit, you have, you're charismatic, you're good with people, you're good with relationships, you're good at talking to the camera and actually or creating whatever your skill set is, then you're going to be able to do very, very well, even if you lack a little bit in one area. But you have to take both areas seriously enough to where you can do well, because it all comes back to the business side. If you actually want to make some money on it, you have to be able to respond to emails quickly. You have to be able to have a schedule, know how to create, and do the numbers where you can make some money on this stuff,
Mm.
and it's not just going out the window. Because the art's one thing, but if you're doing business, money does rule over these things. So you have to be able to go back and forth and understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's a lot easier to do art when the bills are paid and you don't have to think
yes.
about that. So
Yeah, 100%. That's one thing too. That's one thing in our business now, that I try to stay out of the majority of, where I'll go in and I'll do meetings and I'll kind of structure deals. But when it comes to the money side of things, when it comes to like the admin side and accounting and all that, I don't look at anything. I don't even really want to know once, and I'll know, in general, like what some clients are paying, what a monthly retainer is, and what a project is. But I don't really want to know those things. I try to stay out of it because it does affect the way that you create at certain levels. And so I don't want to know anymore. I really don't. I don't care. As long as we're good and we're fine, cool. I'm just going to focus on this side of the stuff. If I'm doing the creative stuff and if I have to hop into other things, I'll do that too. It's totally fine. And I love numbers, but I don't like to look at them all the time
yeah,
because it'll affect the way you move. And I don't like that. So I
that's
try to
awesome.
separate. But that's only now. Like that was not before. So it
Yeah,
was
you
like,
had to earn the right to do that
yes,
through the working and through the focusing
yes,
on those things. That's huge.
100%.
Awesome, dude. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Really appreciate you coming out here. Where
Definitely,
can
bro.
people find you? What should
Yeah,
they
yeah.
look for?
Yeah, so Brotherdale Creative on Instagram, is awesome, and then my Instagram, I post probably way more on there than anywhere else. It's Marcus Taylor 8 just on Instagram, and then our website Brotherdale.com, pretty simple. Uh, but yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I don't post as much on YouTube. I should, like I was saying earlier, I should do that more often, but I don't have the time right now. But yeah, that's if you want to know what I'm doing like day to day most of the time, it's Instagram. I post
Yeah.
enough on there that kind of follow my journey. So
You do, and it's good stuff. Like I said, I've been following you for a while. It's inspiring. It's cool seeing the work life, the personal life. You're still able
yeah,
to hit the gym as well as the behind the scenes stuff that you guys post, even
yeah,
on Brotherdale Creative. Like it's like, oh, you guys are working with what RG3 right now.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
working with
yeah, yeah.
RG3. Oh, he's
Yes.
doing that. He's going here. It's really cool to see, and you guys are killing it.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. And by the way, you're a really good podcast host, so you should keep doing this for
I
sure.
I appreciate that. It's
Yeah,
something, a skill I want to develop. So I'm looking forward to doing this. A tradition I do want to start though
yeah.
on here. So if you could talk to anybody, so if for example,
Mhm.
I you could listen to anybody or talk to anybody, who would that person be? And if I can get them on and talk to them, I'll of course make sure people know that it was you who inspired me to bring them on. But who would be that one person be?
Oh wow, that's incredible. Okay. Um, one person. I'll have to narrow this down a little bit. There's a few that are really, very close to this, but this is actually this might even surprise you. I hope you know who it is. You probably do. You know Patrick, but David.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
You would if you've seen him.
I
I'm
probably
gonna pull him up.
okay.
PBD podcast is his thing, but he is Valuetainment is their hang on, let me pull this up. Put this on mute, but let's see. All right, this is him with RFK, but see, I don't know if
Okay,
you
yeah. I do
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
absolutely do
So
know who that is.
so Patrick, he's a big entrepreneur. He
Yep.
owns Valuetainment, PBD podcast. They have I think like 5 million on YouTube, and they're growing a huge thing. He'd probably be probably one person first in line to be able to talk to. I would say Dana White, but I was able to talk to him
Yeah.
already, so that was one of the big guys
Okay.
that inspired me a lot. Just his mindset. But PBD is cool because he started from nothing. He was an immigrant. He moved here with his parents from Iran, essentially, and was able to build this massive insurance agency back in the day. And it's not creative, but now he's in the creative field where they're
Mhm.
doing the whole valuetainment thing, where it's they have podcasts, they have the network, they have a bunch of things happening, production company. Um, and I was able to go and this last summer and go tour the facility with his co-host Adam, and it was awesome. I got to go to the whole. If you when you look into this, they have a whole podcast inside of a bank vault. Essentially,
Jeez.
it's called a vault. Yeah, it's wild. And but I wasn't able to talk to him. So he actually was leaving a meeting and he walked kind of by us, but it was across the room. So I would have talked to him 100%, but I would want to have a conversation with him. So yeah, at some point I know it's going to happen eventually. But his whole story is incredible. He has kids, and the way he's raising them, because obviously he sold his company for
Hmm.
a lot of money. He's very, very well off now, and but the way he's raising his kids is a very cool way that he's going to be able to instill like the work ethic and
Yeah.
be able to treat people the same way, and that's really important to me. I want to treat everybody the exact same way. If it's a CEO of a company or if it's the janitor, you have to have respect for everybody. So just the way he communicates, and he's a very good talker. He's very smart in business, so that'd probably be the number one pick I would say would be Patrick
Awesome.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm gonna have to look him up because that's super interesting.
Yeah,
How to raise your kids. We're both married. I don't know
yep,
if you want kids. I do
I
at
do.
some
Yeah,
point, but
yeah,
balancing that mindset's like, I don't want to screw this up. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? So that's
yeah.
interesting. That's something I'm definitely interested in.
Yeah, look into him. He's awesome. He's a super inspiring dude. He's not just they talk about all type of stuff like
Yeah,
relationship stuff, but politics and everything else under the sun, entrepreneurship. Um, but yeah, good communicator, and he's also really good at podcasting, very good at storytelling. So it might be
yeah,
some good stuff for you to
absolutely,
get some inspiration.
absolutely.
Definitely.
All right. Well, Marcus, thank you again for your time, dude. You're the man, and like I said, you've been awesome to watch. Again, I'll be here from the sidelines
Let's
cheering you guys
go.
on every second of the way. And so we're definitely gonna have to do this again, maybe at the end of the year, as this
Yeah,
develops for me and as a Brotherdale continues to develop for you, and just be something to look back on. That'd be really cool, dude.
100%. I appreciate you, bro. And whenever you come to Nashville, come through, and then we'll have you on our podcast. So it could be a
Likewise.
blast.
All
Yeah,
right, will do, dude. I'm in
yeah,
Denver
we'll do it.
now, so if you're ever in town, if I'm ever in town, which I think I might be at some point here soon, down in
Yeah,
Nashville, we'll make something happen.
awesome, brother. Appreciate you, man.